Welcome to the 3Haunted podcast, where we bring you all things horror, supernatural, folklore, mythology, and all things that go bump in the night.
What's up, everybody? This is your co-host, Ashley Lunar Goddess, Gorilla Girl filmmaker and horror-loving cinephile. I'm just your average podcast-producing badass.
And I'm John Thomas. If it's haunted, cursed, or just plain weird, I'm into it. From paranormal encounters to horror movie deep dives, urban legends, cryptids, count me in.
I'm BJ Sewura, an aspiring paranormal musician who plays live for the dead because the living just doesn't want to hear me.
What's up, ghouls, gals, and all of our cosmic pals out there? In today's episode, we'll be discussing awakening to your multidimensional self and the infinity healing method with a very special returning guest, Dr. Lisa Thompson. Welcome, Lisa.
So great to be back on with you.
It's been too long. I don't know why in my head I thought we had you on season 5, but so glad to have you in season 6. So welcome back. And I assume you're still on the Big Island.
I am on the Big Island, yes. And even though it's mid-December when we're recording this, it's still like 80 degrees.
Oh my goodness. You know, we can relate, not to the same extent as you. You get the humidity in the ocean, but Colorado, I mean, we're having like 70-degree, very sunny days. And so being as high in the elevation as we are, it is warm. Now, are you still offering the UFO tours on the island?
I am actually, and it's been going for now 4.5 years. It's like really amazing that I've been able to keep it going, and things have massively changed in terms of the kind of guests that are coming on the tour because partly in with government disclosure, more and more people are opening their minds to that this is real phenomena. People who used to be no way, complete skeptics, are actually really opening their minds. And so more people are coming on tour and curious about the phenomena.
That is so cool. Since the disclosure and more people being active to wanting to investigate and experience that, have you noticed any shift in the actual experiences that you're seeing? Like, do you see more activity or less activity?
We do actually, and it kind of depends on the energy of the guests of the night. It's very interesting what we observe. So when people come and they're curious, but they're not like expecting to see anything, or they're just like, okay, we're out to look at the night sky. We see stuff, but it's usually not like an extraordinary light show. We will see the lights, and the ETs will do their thing to be like, yes, we're here, we're real. But what happens is when people come with full joy and excitement and really like, oh, I cannot wait for this, the light show is massive.
Being that you've been doing that for 4+ years now, like in terms of, I know that the tours have been going on for 4 years, but you've been experiencing this longer. Does it ever because the light shows are amazing, like, do you ever get used to it, or is it like each time like, oh my goodness, this is amazing?
That's a really good question. I actually, there's some activity that I'm like, okay, guys, let's do something a little bit grander than that. And then they'll do something. And sometimes it's actually not meant for our guests. Sometimes it's just meant for me personally, or me and my assistant Isaiah, who helps me on tour, who's also lifelong experiencer like I am. And so there have been moments where we'll stay after tour, our guests have left. We're still sitting out there, just having conversation, enjoying the sky with the goggles put away. And a recent one that was pretty incredible is we were looking out straight ahead of us, but to the right side of us, out of the corner of our eye, this massive light shot down on the pavement, and it got our attention. We looked and we saw this craft zipping away. And so that really was meant for just us, not for our guests. And then it was only maybe a few weeks after that, and this was a couple months ago, where we were still sitting out there. And, it was just me and my friend Isaiah, who helps me. And we heard this chattering noise. Now, on the Big Island, we have very specific animals, and I know the sounds as a biologist. And anyone who lives here, we know the sounds of the animals out in the field. So we have wild goats, we have chickens, feral chickens, we have wild turkeys, we have wild donkeys, geckos, which have a very distinct sound, and then our Hawaiian owl, which flies at night, and then some insects. So all of those are very distinct. But so we're out there sitting and we hear this chattering behind us, and we're like, be quiet, let's listen. What is that? And then we heard the same noise directly in front of us. And so they were like talking to each other from each side. And it was not the animals. There was something there in the field with us.
So do you say, hey, why don't you come pull up a chair, talk with us?
Well, a lot of these beings are higher dimensional beings. And so it really does take a lot if they were going to densify into physical reality for us to see them. And so just by letting us know that they're there and we were able to acknowledge them, like, thank you, for being here, even though we couldn't understand what they were saying. Yes, we could invite them, but likely that's not going to happen at this point.
So you mentioned that, some of them are dimensional, and so it would take effort to be in like the more denser life form. So what are the ones then that we are seeing in the crafts? Because those are physical dense machinery. Like what exactly would that be then?
So from my experience, well, and there are a bunch of different groups
Mhm.
that are able to appear that way. And so a lot of the craft that I think that we are seeing here in Hawaii, specifically flying over our sky, are part of the different galactic federations that are watching over Earth. And so you've got a mixture of races on those craft and some different technology. And what's interesting is that over these last several years, they come in different forms, how they want to show up. So when we're looking through our Generation 3 military night vision goggles, what we're picking up is some kind of energy signature, whether it's light or energy. They're too far away for us to know the difference, but especially through the goggles. The goggles, what they do is they amplify the light that we see. And so where our eyes can only take in so much starlight, with the goggles, we're seeing hundreds to thousands more things in the sky, whether it's stars or satellites or these UFOs, UAPs. And so what's interesting is that over the years, we have had different moments where we are photographing or filming these objects. And what they appear to our eyes is very different than what the video camera, the phone is picking up. So one example would be, there was one that was April of last year, so April of 2024, and it was flying fairly low over my town, Waikoloa Village, close to the tree line, and it appeared like a white glowing light. So it looked like a satellite. Satellite behavior is just a glowing object, not blinking, not flashing, nothing like that. But it was way too low and big to be a satellite. I lasered it. It dimmed out, it turned back on. So I knew, okay, for sure that's not a satellite. And I knew it wasn't an airplane. And so I had Isaiah video it with his phone. And when we looked at the video, zoomed in, and then slowed down frame by frame, it actually was like a plasma energy craft. And you could see it changing shape and color when it was blown up. And so it was changing from purple and red and green and white. And we were watching it for a couple minutes, and we should have still seen it, but it just completely disappeared in the middle of the sky. And our attention on it was because we saw an airplane flying towards our local airport over the way that it was flying. So the airplane was still going, we could see it, but this object just disappeared. And so some of them like that, when you blow up the video, you can see that they are more energy than a metallic physical kind of craft.
Can you take video from the goggles themselves, or I don't know if that's a technology we have yet.
We probably do have that kind of technology, but these goggles are $4,000 each
Ooh.
at the base level. And so they probably do make more advanced ones, but because they're military, I don't know if they make them to video stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have a night vision video camera that my prior husband, who passed away a couple of years ago, he used to do the videos with the night vision camera. And that picks it up, not as well as seeing it with the goggles, but you can get some good footage with night vision video cameras.
That's really cool.
Have you ever had any experiences where, whether you're on a tour or just your own personal encounters, where what you see elicits like a fear-based reaction, or have you, because of your lifelong experiences, it's just all pretty positive in how you receive it?
Yeah, great question. So, yeah, my personal experiences, especially in my adulthood, have all been non-fear based. It's been like, yes, thank you. Thank you for being here, and much gratitude. When I was younger in my teen years and was experiencing things, it was more of curiosity, and it wasn't so much fear, but I do remember one night laying in my bed where I felt some ETs in my bedroom with me, and I didn't want to open my eyes and look at them. And I was having a fear response, but that doesn't mean that they were necessarily like negatively intent, in terms of their energy. It was that I didn't know enough about them at the time. And we tend to, as humans, go into fear and creating stories around things that are unknown until we work through the shadows of our minds. And so, as an adult, when I'm learning then how to really consciously connect with them, contact them, and that was part of the spiritual school of enlightenment that I went to, where we were learning how to communicate like that. And then I was having my own personal experiences. But with that, there was no fear from that point onward.
I like the way you put that, that once you navigate through like the shadows of your mind, those fear-based reactions are less present, because I feel like a lot of the experiences of things we can't explain elicit the like fear base out of us, even if they aren't meant to. Like you said, the evil intention isn't there, the maliciousness isn't there. It's like, oh, I'm scared. And I'm sure, that's a survival instinct we needed way in the past. But as we evolve, we can kind of move past that, right?
We can. And that's what's interesting about people who either have missing time or so called abduction kind of experiences. And I don't like that term abduction because immediately it's a negative connotation. And now, with all that I understand spiritually, multidimensionally, everything is a soul contract agreement. And so when we understand what these experiences are at the root, like what the actual agreement is, and we understand what's going on, then whatever might have been perceived as negative or scary or against someone's will actually isn't. And so, very often, people who feel like they're part of maybe the Zeta human hybrid program, where their eggs or sperm are being harvested to create these hybrid children, some people feel very violated with that. And I know I'm part of that program, and I do understand that I volunteered. I'm like, yes, sign me up. I will definitely be part of this because I understand the greater purpose of it, which is to create an advanced, spiritually advanced hybrid ET race that are it's part of our evolution, it's part of the Zeta evolution, and it's a beautiful thing. It's nothing to be afraid of.
I feel like we touched on that at some point, or I'm just mixing up what's actually been discussed. But um, For those that are part of the Zeta hybrid and you've got the children being born from that hybrid race, do they know that that's what they are? Or are they kind of introduced in as you're just humanity and the next phase of?
Are you talking about the children? Do they know
Hmm.
that they?
Yeah.
Yes, they do. They do. All that, well, I will say, not across the board necessarily. The ones that are still up in the spacecraft that haven't come to Earth, they are fully aware of what they are and what's going on. I do believe, though, that in the last recent years, we have had some seeding of these hybrid children on Earth. And oftentimes, and I'm getting my goosies when what I say is really resonating true, is that they have been seeded here in terms of being put up for adoption and other ways like that, or placed into families where they grow up not knowing necessarily that they're this hybrid. And part of that is so that they can acclimate to Earth in a much more organic way.
How would somebody like help them discover that? Is that where you would come in, or
I think it's going to be a little bit different for each child or each person that is that, because sometimes, again, sometimes they're put into the womb of the mother or they're tinkered with in the womb. So, like in my case, I'm not saying that I was necessarily a seeded ET into my mother's womb, because she knows when I was conceived, exactly when I was conceived. But I know that they were tinkering with me in the womb so that I could stay alive. So that's one way. And I didn't know that until just a few years ago. And, at the time we're recording this in a couple days, I'm 53. So it's only a few years ago that I discovered that. So it could be something that they discover in their childhood, just a memory coming back, or it could be through some kind of awakening process, or working with someone like me to access, okay, let's go back pre-birth to soul contract agreement, to other lives, what was going on.
And you've recently introduced awakening the multidimensional self. Now, what exactly does that look like?
Okay, so yeah, this was my new book that came out right after we aired that first show that I
Yeah.
was on. And so, what I have really come to understand about multidimensional reality. So, for me, for most of my life since I was 13, this was theory. It wasn't lived experience. Where at the quantum level, all timelines exist simultaneously. And so there is no past, there is no future. Everything is existing in the now. And because of that, also, we are infinite beings. We have infinite number of lives here on earth, as well as non-earth lives in higher dimensional realms, lower dimensional realms, like all the things. We are all of it. And even in this earth timeline, this experience as Lisa, BJ, John, Ashley, we have infinite number of timelines that exist as these earth humans. And so really what helped me to understand how real this was as lived experience was back in 2022 when I started channeling my Arcturians, and specifically Arcturian Uluru. What I realized very quickly was that I was just channeling myself, that I was Arcturian Uluru. And once I acknowledged that, and part of that channeling, it was vocal channeling, but it was also channeling the healing energy from the Arcturian realm. So in that realm, I'm a master healer. And so when I started channeling that energy and really understanding, oh, it's just me, there's nothing to be afraid of. And it helped that connection even stronger, because then I was like, okay, well, it's just me. I can tap into myself. And then in 2023, when I was bringing in those 12 additional groups, what I realized, those are just aspects of me as well. And so I'm tapping into my Andromedan self, my Pleiadian self, my Zeta, all the different beings. And so number one, I knew that in those realities that I was a higher dimensional being as each of them, because I was only tapping into those aspects of myself so that I would not pull forth any polarized or fear-based information, because that's not what I'm here to do as a galactic ambassador. And it made it more real in terms of like, okay, even I've been trained as a past life regression therapist. I've had, thousands of clients accessing different lives in all these different realms. I've accessed my lives. And so the more that working with my clients and understanding these different lives and then incorporating them into my own life, how multidimensional we really are. And we're able to pull forth the wisdom, the skills, the abilities from all of these other lives, whether they're of Earth or not of Earth. And then it became even more clear when my husband passed away, because in this physical avatar costume that we're wearing, we feel that this is real. We think Earth School, this is real. And it's not that it's not real, but it is like more of a dream state. This isn't who we really are. And even though the physical costume perishes, the energy, the soul, the essence never dies. It's infinite. And so, even when our loved ones are physically gone out of our lives, they are still there. They can still communicate, just like these higher dimensional ETs or any of the ETs and the angels, the spirit guides, the animal guides, the elementals, anything and everything that has consciousness, we can tap into. And we have aspects of all of that. So, the more that we bring it back to us, the even more evolved of a human we really are.
So there's so many things. I have so many thoughts about, so people who die, they become, they're just energy, right? So they don't go away. So when you're contacting, do the extraterrestrials, do they have are they more in tune with the afterlife than say we are? And is that the goal, to be more connected as a I guess a living being versus when you're gone physically?
Okay, that's a really good question. So, one of the things that we have agreed to playing here on Earth School, from my understanding, is that we, so in these other realms, these higher dimensional realms, and when we're back in spirit, we fully know how connected we all are. We are all connected to source, to each other, to everything. Love is the basis of everything. And in order to like experience more, to gain more wisdom, to it's kind of like playing a game. And so one of the parameters of Earth School is that we go through the tunnel of forgetfulness when we're born. And so we come knowing we're going to forget who we really are. And then it can take one lifetime or it can take multiple lifetimes, whatever that soul decides how it wants to play the game, to eventually wake up to remembering who and what we really are. So on the other side and in these higher dimensional realms, they never forget. They're even when they're born, they don't forget. They just know. And so it's us in this earth reality. We want to experience, for the sake of experience, separation and forgetting so that we can remember. But again, it's just a game.
So when you are helping people awaken to that multidimensional self, is the purpose of that to connect with those other dimensional connections, extensions of yourself?
Ultimately, that is my goal. And over the last few weeks, I have had multiple sessions with clients where um, the base level is they think they're meeting their galactic family. And the majority of the clients that I've worked with in these sessions, and this is very unusual compared to what it used to be. So I used to do the sessions, and it would be a family member or a guide, but they never really got that it was themselves that they were meeting. And in the last 3 weeks, it has over and over and over, when I ask them in that really relaxed regress state, is this who you're meeting? Is this one of your family, your guides, or an aspect of yourself? The majority are coming up with, that's an aspect of myself. And it's pretty incredible, because then when they realize that, when they're like, oh, it's an aspect of myself, then I have the ability to help them really integrate that into every cell of their being in this physical earth reality. And what that does is it activates the latent DNA, it activates the clair abilities. They're coming more online, remembering who they really are, and that they're more than just this one earth life. And so the point of that is to, at least for me in this experience as Lisa, is to help people awaken, to shift to that higher consciousness reality. That's one of the reasons why I'm here at this time on earth.
Is it possible then, when we have all of these different individuals with metaphysical gifts or enhanced abilities, and they all speak to their spirit guide team, is it possible that oftentimes people are referencing their spirit guide team, but it's actually aspects of themselves they're connected to?
Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely. And over and over, even when people think they're just meeting, a spirit guide, I I will be like, yeah, you're meeting yourself. And what I have a little fun story that I happened after I was on your show, so it's going to be fresh. But this also, like, how? Okay, so Arcturian Uluru, I met myself in October of 2018, and so I shared that story last time I was on, and I didn't know it was myself until 2022. So almost 4 years later. And what's so interesting is that um, in November of 2024, I was part of an ET diplomacy conference as one of their speakers. And one of the other speakers, she had a couple of podcasts. So I was on her regular podcast where it was just her as the host. And then she invited me on her co hosted podcast that she did with her best friend. Now, her best friend had never met me, knew nothing about me at all. And that woman, her name is Jennifer, she remembers her full life as a Lyran ET during the time of the Orion Wars. So Star Wars equals Orion Wars. And she had written a book about this. So in the middle of the podcast, and we weren't talking about me being Arcturian yet at all, but she recognizes me. She's like, I know you. And I'm like, she's like, you're Arcturian. I said, yeah. She said, you're a healer. I said, yeah. She said, I wrote about you in my book. And so then when we get off the podcast, she tells me what my role in her book was. And then she sends me the PDF. So I'm reading it, and I get to the part where she's writing about me. And I thought it was going to be really generic, some Arcturian healer, but it was very, very specific, master healer Arcturian Uluru, and spelled correctly. And when I read that, like, again, full body, like, chills, tears, and that's the way that my body gives me the indicator, like, that's real. So I already knew it for myself, but having someone else recognize me externally like that was huge. And I mean, and you can't make that stuff up.
No, that's super cool.
Yeah, that's crazy. So you said that, why would you come back then? Like, if you've already were an ET before, and then you would come back as a human, is it to spread the messages, to do what you're doing now as the main goal?
I believe so. Yes, that's my understanding, because I have had I've had some different Earth lives. but I've mostly had non-Earth lives. And some of them were related to Earth, though, even though I wasn't Earth human. And so one of those was during the time of the building of the pyramids in Egypt. Again, way more ancient, long ago than archaeologists want to say. But I was one of the ETs here to help the humans. I was a genetic engineer from Sirius, and our job was to upgrade the human body to modify the DNA so that the humans could hold more consciousness, run more energy through their body. And then we had others of us, boots on the ground, teaching the humans how to do the sound thought levitation of these megalithic stones. And so that I knew, okay, I'm this ET, but I'm helping Earth in that way. And then there's another life where I was holding energy for the Earth before the animals were seated here. And I do have to tell you, so I have a PhD in evolutionary biology, marine biology, zoology. And I was trained very traditionally of what evolution is and how things evolve and all that. Well, my understanding now is completely different than the academics that I learned and then had to teach my students. So I'm this energy holding space for Earth. And it was my job to tell whoever the powers that be were that it was time, the Earth was ready to start seeding the animals here. And so just a couple of examples of how I have interacted with Earth, human wise and non human wise. But coming back in this time, this place was very specific, so that I could not only remember very early on who I was. I did choose my mother to be part of that spiritual school of enlightenment where we were learning that, or remembering, where we really come from, that we are multidimensional. So I didn't have to go through a bunch of religious dogma. And then also being this ET kind of hybrid where I'm here to be a galactic ambassador. I'm here to spread these like uplifting love messages to counteract the fear-based polarized messaging going on and to help humanity shift to fifth dimensional living. And then also within our lifetime, very, very, very likely we're going to have full open contact with the ETs. So I'm here to help bridge that as well.
That's super exciting. Is there gonna do you know, I guess, which ones are going to be making contact, or is it
Surprise.
like a few different kinds that are gonna say hello? And
Yeah, there are some different groups. The primary group that will likely first make contact are the Pleiadians because they are the closest to us genetically. They look like these beautiful Nordic Scandinavian humans. And so they're not scary looking at all. In fact, they're quite attractive. So, people, we have so much judgment of what humans look like. So the ones who judge what other humans look like, they're going to have a hard time with ETs that do not look like humans. So the Pleiadians, our closest genetic relatives, that's an easy bridge because they've already been here on Earth. They've interacted with Earth humans throughout our Earth history. And then our hybrids, the Zeta human hybrids, will also be another group that will be here finally ready to meet their parents, the Earth parents. And then we have other human looking ones like Tau Cetians and some others that, again, they look very human. It might take a little longer for different types like the mantids, the mantis beings, which are one of my favorite groups. People seem to be really afraid of insectoids. I mean, people are afraid of insects, just little insects here on Earth. So imagine a 14-foot tall praying mantis bipedal being. People are going to be like, oh my God, it's a monster.
I mean, the Mothman, perfect example, right? Like
Right.
that's people are afraid of the Mothman. Like, so maybe that's just an alien.
Right. Well, and my understanding of Mothman was it was just simply a messenger. It wasn't bringing the doom
Oh no.
on this town. It was a messenger that something was going to happen.
Now, being that in the parallel lives, there are some beings that are multidimensional that have an extension here. And so, is it then possible that because they are capable of crossing dimensions in the way that they're able to, that when people sense that they've been kind of followed their whole life by a being, that it might just be their own self checking in?
Very well could be actually. And I have a friend, Mike, who he's written and spoken about shadow people. And I remember reading his story and then hearing, just he was telling me in person about his real story of experiencing a shadow person when he was a little kid in his bedroom. And the shadow person came and crossed his arms, and he was freaked out at the time as a kid. And what he realizes now was that was him actually comforting his child self. But the child has this fear reaction, not knowing what it is. Yeah. So even in human form, we can have those experiences. And yes, some of these beings are simply just us watching over us.
Imagine like the psychology behind someone who's having a fear-based reaction, meeting an extension of themselves, like a mantis, like you're afraid of yourself. There's so many layers going on there.
There are, right? Well, I mean, we've got that's again our shadows in our this human ego mind, right? It's like slaying the dragon of our mind. And
What if one of yourselves is a dragon? That would
I
be
am.
See?
I have a dragon self. I have a whole dragon team too.
That is amazing. See, I don't think we got into that before. How many dragons do you have?
I have 444 dragons.
I've been seeing that number everywhere the past few days. 444.
And a lot of them live in the volcanoes here in Hawaii. And they help me travel to inner Earth in my astral travels.
Have you been able to physically, consciously meet any of the dragons, or is it all astral at this point?
So it not necessarily astral. Yes, I have. I had an experience a few months ago where, okay, and I will admit we were doing some psilocybin. So in that state, and normally I haven't done that for a long time, but I thought, okay, let me just see what happens. And it was two of my friends with me, and it was a beautiful experience because for several hours all of my different ET groups were just coming to me to be like, hi, thank you. And like being really appreciative for the work, for me speaking out about them. And then also a couple of my groups were doing healing on me in that. So yeah. And it was really real. Like I could feel it. I could see them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've heard the psilocybin does definitely do that. It can open your mind to. Is it because it quiets everything else? Is that what it is?
I think so. And it just puts you in a different part of your brain. And so, yeah, the chattery ego mind that likes to control gets shut down a little more so that you're tapping into more of that third eye and other parts of your brain.
So I'm a little too nervous to go there because I feel like your team came and was like healing you. My team's going to arrive and I'm going to discover like it's 50 demons.
Well, what I will say is if it were 50 demons, you could be like, hi guys, I love you. And
it's like
they'd be
there's
like,
big
"I love you."
brothers, right? Like the scary big brothers. Say, what's up, guys?
That's right.
Would they be extensions of you though? Like
Maybe
same.
it's
Yeah.
extensions of me. Maybe it's supporting team. I don't. It's all everything. I don't know.
Well, and here's the beauty is that we are all of it. So yeah, we do have higher dimensional selves. We have lower dimensional selves. We have this earth reality. I have regressed clients where they've experienced being a tree for 1,000 years, that consciousness, or a dragonfly or a crystal in the ground. And so all of these things have consciousness. We are all of them. And, there is no good or bad, right or wrong in any of it. And so even the perceived demons who get a bad rap, they have their purpose.
Those are my homies. You know, you mentioned someone being a crystal, and I wonder if why there are individuals that are geosensitive, that can feel like the subtle shifts and nuances and vibrations of rocks and crystals on Earth, and it resonates differently and impacts their energy differently. And I wonder if it's because they have like a strong parallel or past connection to that.
Yeah, I would say definitely. And what's interesting is that even though we all have those aspects of ourselves as well, whatever is closest parallel wise is what we tap into easiest, what bleeds through to this earth life more so. And so someone who did maybe has a closer crystal kind of experience, they can sense that easier. Just like with my Arcturian self, what's really interesting is that what I did as an Arcturian is similar to what I'm here to do now as Earth Lisa. It just took many years for me to get here to want to even want to help humanity and heal, because I did not like humans most of my life. That's why I became a biologist, animal biologist. My role was to help those who wanted to heal from the dark side and transition to the light. And I had no judgment on them whatsoever. And it was typically Dracos that I was helping. And I had so much love and compassion for them. And I didn't like judge them as a race. And so I was able to help heal this and transition them into the light, those that were ready. And that's what I'm here to do in this Lisa life as well. So it's just interesting because even Jennifer, who wrote the book, being Lyran, her role is very similar to what she was doing in that Lyran life. And other people that she wrote about, she now has met. We're all over the world and we're all coming back together. And we all have very similar characteristics as to what we had during that particular life, which makes sense that it's bleeding through the strongest.
I wonder if that's what's gonna ultimately kind of bring everybody back together, is this awakening and this connection with the ETs and them showing themselves. Because, we're so hateful with each other that, maybe initially we will fight against it, right? I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be the thing, but I feel like it is ultimately the thing that'll bring us together, because then we're all part of the same thing. It's just like an example of, hey, you're me, I'm you. Let me show you the way. But I don't
Yeah.
know.
And it's possibly a chicken egg situation where which one comes first? Are we awakening and then we can experience them? Or are they coming more and more because more? I think what's happening, more and more people are awakening. And so we're getting enough people that they can show themselves for even bigger awakening to happen. And it's it's been like quarantine time in a way for them, not participating as boldly as they used to in Earth's history. But that time is coming to an end where they want us to know about them. Some of us are ready for that massive open contact. And I think the more that is going on, like, we have 3i Atlas coming through. Well, more and more people are talking about things off of this earth and like, what's happening? What is this thing? And no matter what it is, it's stirring up conversation. It's opening up minds, no matter who's right or wrong about what they're remote viewing or channeling from that thing. It has a purpose.
Why did the presence stop? Because we see that in all of the like pictographs and the hieroglyphs and from different cultures and different peoples and different parts of the world, that there was presence of whether they were called star people or otherwise, there was active presence influencing and interacting with humanity at some point. So why did it stop? Or I guess why did it stop being so visible and obvious?
So there are some different ideas about that. And um and again, and this is it, it's going to seem like a cop out, but it's really not. Is there are different realities that are true. And so some people suggest that after the fall of Atlantis, that there was this massive quarantine put on Earth where basically, okay, leave the humans alone, let them like figure things out again as they're evolving from base one again. Um, there are different ideas out there, and because all timelines exist simultaneously, all realities exist simultaneously, truly. And so, whatever one's perception is of reality, that is true for them, um, which doesn't give a direct answer. And so, whatever I were to say, if I were to be really adamant about it, it's just my perception. It's one reality of many that exist. Now there's probably a collective consciousness story. That doesn't make it the only true story.
Yeah, I oftentimes wonder why in this specific timeline, the I guess the integration or the guidance kind of stopped. And maybe it's like parent being a parent, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know and try and help you, but once you're off in your little adult space, you have to blossom and figure it out from there. And so, but I don't know. I feel like whatever we've done with those booms, those kind of blasts of evolution and growth, and whatever words I'm trying to think of, the words in my mind is just not quite grasping, but like this idea that we keep hitting these bursts of growth that impact our technology and everything else around us. I don't feel that's a coincidence. Like, oh, we just happen to have a brain spurt that as a collective humanity all around the world. Like, I do feel there's some kind of agency occurring there. A little
Yeah.
assistance, a little nudge, but
Yeah.
I do. It does feel like in the history that we are presented with pictographs, hieroglyphics, and stuff like that, that there was an active presence of something at some point. What, you know, historians would argue that was is one, a totally different story. But the idea that there was a presence helping nudge that along, and then we continue to have these bursts of advancement that seem just a little too intense to be a coincidence.
Yeah. Well, and again, so from I'll say it from my understanding, and again, we'll just put that caveat is that there was some sort of quarantine put on interaction, because when there was a lot of interaction going on with the ETs on the ground and people were getting too much power and information, there were these control power struggles once again. So it's been cyclical. And so at some point, whoever decided was like, okay, you guys cannot interfere with Earth. And so it was the prime directive, like Star Trek. You cannot interfere with the developing society. And they can't go against our free will. We are a free will planet. And so when things and again there was interaction in little bits, not the massive amounts like ancient history. And so then when World War II hit and we're developing nuclear weapons, and all of a sudden we're becoming these really dangerous toddlers once again on our planet where our technology has outgrown our spirituality, and we're going to recreate the same cycle of Atlantis and other cycles like that. And so that's when they started showing up again in masses. And it wasn't because they wanted to take over, because they could have done so far long ago, but it was to make sure, okay, these humans now have these really dangerous weapons that not only affect Earth, but it has a ripple effect out into the solar system, into the galaxy, through dimensions. And because some of them really are our parents, they're like, okay, we're going to intervene without going against free will.
From your understanding of this specific like reality timeline we are sharing in this experience, was humanity seeded to be the species that grew? Or was it we were all kind of seeded, like this the animals and species that were deposited on Earth, and that was kind of chosen later?
I think humans were chosen to come later. Like it was like Earth was already going, the animals, the plants, all the things were already here. And even back during the time of the dinosaurs, the first ET visitors came to the planet. And these were the Vegans from the Lyra constellation. And they were the first human types to come to Earth. And some of them, they incorporated some of that reptilian DNA into their bodies, creating the reptilian humanoid hybrids. Some of them put even more reptilian DNA, becoming reptilians. And then at some point, the human types left Earth, and some of those reptilian ones stayed behind. And so they were the original, like, human types that were planted, were the reptilian humanoids. And then later, then human Lyrans were coming, and they became Earth Lyrans. They incorporated some of the primate DNA into their bodies. And then other Lyrans were coming, but were warring. So these original Earth Lyrans, really harmonious, really peaceful with each other. And then more Lyrans were coming who were not peaceful. The Earth Lyrans left and colonized the Pleiades, becoming Pleiadians. So Pleiadians, when I say they're our closest genetics, it's because they were actually on Earth first before they were ever called Pleiadians, and colonized that. And so then when Lemuria was a civilization, then the Pleiadians came back to teach the Lemurians their ways. And again, this really close, like human looking kind of group. So we've had different things like that throughout our Earth history. And, you know, there are so many different stories about like how originally humans got seeded. And, you know, there are different ways that that definitely happened. But what I am aware of from my memories and understanding is more of once humans or the human form was starting, then there were different groups that came throughout that human evolution to modify the DNA, to upgrade the body, to change the physiology, the anatomy, so that it could do different things. Do I think we were created as a slave race? That's not my perception.
I mean, from an anthropological perspective, that makes sense in all of the variations we see, right? Within the hominids. And like, you know, at first they're like, oh, even the timeline on that changes because you see like the timeline of the evolution of man. And they're like, well, it was first this and then this and then this. And now we're finding that actually they were existing at the same time. And then they were also, you know, mating and creating a subspecies. And so it's just like, it would make sense why we see so many deviations on the timeline existing around the same time. Because before it was like, no, it was A, B, C, D. And now it's like, actually, they were all around at the same time or overlapping.
Yeah, we have this idea of missing links in our human evolution too, and where we have the massive changes in anatomy and physiology that can't be explained by anything. There's no transition species. And so that's where, for me, where I'm like, yep, that's where the ETs came and like did something. They spliced our DNA and they modified our DNA for that massive shift. And you know, was it all good? I'm not going to say it is, because there were some groups that were really just like doing some massive genetic experimentation. But ultimately, because we're infinite beings, there is no good or bad. And I think a lot of people have a hard time remembering that or knowing that because they feel Earth life is so real and this polarized reality is so real.
And that is how we got the Labradoodle.
Are we so right now I don't know if we're the most connected we've ever been as a species because of technology, the internet and all of that, being able to just to communicate with each other across the globe instantly. Does that feed into our awakening? Does that make any difference, or is it just the same as it was back in Egypt, and the awakening in Atlantis? Like, is there anything different about what we're doing now as a species as compared to previous awakenings?
Well, we definitely have a bigger population now than we ever did. Yeah. So, from at least from what I know, this is the most populated Earth has ever been with humans. And is it truly overpopulated? There's still land mass, there's still resources. So it's just how it's allocated. Um, yeah. So we have had other kinds of technology, other communication. You know, we have been telepathic as humanity before. We've had even greater communication than what we do now and technology. And so we're still coming up to the pinnacle of what we have been. And the key, though, is that in those previous realities, the technology really did outgrow the spirituality. And that was the demise of that civilization. And so it's really when the spirituality is equal, at least to the technology, that then technology can be used in a benevolent way. Because again, nuclear energy, there's no right or wrong in it. It's just how you're using that technology that then gets the perceived, is it good or bad?
One of your extensions is of your higher self is master healer. Do you incorporate what you apply as a master healer in that extension into what you do here? And is that something we find in the infinity healing method?
It is. And so thank you for asking that. And so, again, what's interesting is I did not come into this life like actively knowing that I would ever want to be a healer. I loved animals, and I do know that a lot of my other incarnations had to do with being like keeper of the DNA and seeding the animals and all the biodiversity. I was a biodiversity expert, so I've always been that, which makes sense why that was my first career here on Earth, and that gave me background for then doing what I was doing as Lisa and experiencing real life here on Earth, hard stuff that eventually led me to being like, oh, okay, I guess I am meant to help humanity. What does that even look like? And so then I got trained in a couple of modalities like past life regression therapy. And then when I started channeling the Arcturians, then and my light language got activated, it was that combination that I started channeling that energy from that realm because I understood what it was. So I knew how to access it naturally, like it wasn't something that I was taught. But it was something that was a co-communication between me and me. And so it was like, what are we doing? Oh, we're doing this. Okay. And it actually was an evolution because then when I tapped into my Syrian aspect after that and my mantis aspect, they also brought in healing aspects that were very different than that Arcturian energy. And so it was like the trifecta of these three different higher dimensional races, species that personally that I pull through for the healing for me and my clients. And it was just something that kind of naturally unfolded over time, which then turned into what I call infinity healing method. And even though I was doing this work, I was calling it different things. I didn't know what to call it. And then it was the very beginning of 2025 when the name came in like a download, a massive download. It was like, this is the name of it. Just figure it out, name it this. And so, what I now am able to help people do, and I have a certification program coming up, is not tap into my higher dimensional healing aspects, but their own higher dimensional healing aspects. So, for those who are already healers or coaches that really want to enhance that and work with that higher dimensional energy, then I can help them access whoever their groups are, because it may not be the same ones as mine, but we all have these different abilities. It's just some of us are here to use them, not everyone is.
When we are journeying into our shadow self and we're tackling our trauma, whether it be consciously or unpacking it from that stored energy and carrying it in our body, that's a lot. That's a lot of scars being ripped open and a lot of energy occurring. Do you find there's anything you have to do for yourself specifically to be able to work with people, because that is a lot of energy and a lot of raw emotion? Like, is there anything you have to do to protect yourself or your boundaries?
Okay, that's a really good question, because energetic hygiene is a thing that healers need to be aware of. And even just humans need to be aware of maintaining their own energy space, their own environment, not absorbing other people's energy. And one of my modalities is human design, and I love looking at people's energy centers and their charts to know, like, oh, this is where you absorb energy, or this is where I absorb energy, and this is likely how it presents. And so when we know that about ourselves, then we can become consciously aware of, like, okay, oh, that's someone else's stuff. Now, as this deep emotional healing work, what's interesting is it's really changed over the last 8.5 years in terms of how I'm able to work with clients. Because what used to happen is we would have to get to the story, the life of whatever the root cause of that blockage or limitation, the trauma is. It might be something in this earth life, but it might be from one of those bleed through parallel lives. Now, that work is still applicable, and it's great work, and it's part of Infinity Healing Method. But even if someone doesn't know the origin, they don't have to know the whole story. They just have to know that that emotion is stuck in their body somewhere. And just even identifying, and they're able, in this deep relaxation, I'm able to scan their body, they scan their body. We're able to find where those emotions are. We don't have to know the story of why it's there, but through the method that I use and that I'm teaching, we're able to clear that energy without it tearing apart the scars, like you say. And so it's actually quite gentle. It's way more gentle than in the old days, where it really could be very traumatic for people to bring up these memories of, like, oh my God, I'm a witch burned at the stake, or, you know, or whatever it is, I stabbed through my heart. And so now, again, it's a whole different game, because we're really operating at the quantum level. And so in that, again, all the things are existing simultaneously. So we don't need to know the story.
It's more gentle.
It is.
Going way back when we first talked, I had a question about, well, for you specifically, you worked with animals and all of that. Did you have a specific animal that because Ashley was a rock, maybe some kind of gem, right? What animal do you identify with the most, besides obviously the ETs?
Actually, great question, because my number one spirit animal is a manta ray. And my company, even before I moved here to Hawaii, I was living in Olympia, Washington. And when I got trained in my first modality of past life regression therapy, I was just downloading ideas of business names, and the name Mystic Manta came into my mind. So my company is Mystic Manta LLC. And then, so that piece is there. And then my teacher, Denise Lynn, I did a whole shamanic journey day with her and tapped into like really being the manta ray. Like I could feel my body shapeshift into that and understand what that felt like. But what's also fascinating is that from 9 years old onward, I was obsessed with sharks and I wanted to study sharks. I read a book about Eugenie Clark, the shark lady, who was the first shark, female shark biologist in the 1960s. And I was like, sharks are misunderstood. I want to know all about them. And I never gave that up. And when I got to grad school, my advisor, he's like, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, something with the sharks. And so then I was looking at all the different things that people were already working on. And the ones that people were not working on were the flat sharks. And the flat sharks are the manta rays, the stingrays, the skates, the guitar fish. And so I became one of the world experts in the flat sharks. And then, so then I took my second husband. We honeymooned here in Kona, Hawaii. And I specifically came here. I brought him here, and this was like 12, 13 years ago now. I brought him here because I wanted to swim with the manta rays. I had not been able to do that in grad school. I was supposed to, but it didn't work out. And so we have a year-round resident population of manta rays here on the west side of the island. And so I'm in the water with these manta rays. There are 33 of them. And Big Bertha, she's the oldest one that's known. She was named in the 1990s. She's 17 feet wide. And so I got to see Big Bertha and these 32 other rays. And they truly are higher dimensional ETs. They have consciousness. They are the smartest fish in the world. And people are like, well, what about the dolphins? I'm like, dolphins are mammals. They're the smartest fish. That's why I want to say that. Smartest fish in the world. They have brain warming. They've done consciousness studies. They're self-aware. They're aware of the people. Anyway, and when I look at my life, I started out as kind of a shark and kind of a stingray, where I had the stinging spine. I was really defensive. I was kind of aggressive. I had that defensive stinging spine. And as I've gone through all my lessons, I have evolved into losing my stinging spine and being the gentle giant of the manta ray, going with the flow. So that's my story of the sharks and the mantas.
And your website is also mysticmanta.com.
It is.
So it's all manta. On your website, you have a plethora of resources, your books, the retreats you offer. Is there anything else you want to speak to on any of the services or any messages you feel compelled to share?
Thank you. So I do have a couple of new offerings, which is my, again, in the early spring, I will be teaching my founders of the Infinity Healing Method certification program. So my first time teaching it as a certification. So I'm really excited about that. There's currently a waiting list for that. And then I do have some different opportunities for private retreats or VIP days that can be done in person here on the island or also over Zoom. It's not as fun as being in Hawaii, but it's deep healing work or whatever that person needs. And then I've got some other things in the works in terms of doing more in-person retreats here on the island like I used to do. The last one I did actually was that week when my husband did pass away. I was in the middle of leading a retreat, so I haven't led a group retreat since that time, but I'm feeling called to start doing that again. And as far as, so I do have a free gift, which is pretty powerful. It's my multidimensional awakening kit, which is at the very top of my website, or you can go to awakenactivatenow.com. And what this is, it's 5 different meditative journeys focused on different things. So the first one, which is something that I continually do, people should do over and over and over, or not should, there are no shoulds, but I recommend, I suggest, I invite you to, because what that does is it clears away our judgment of ourselves and our fears, because the more that we can clear out our own judgments of ourselves, then we stop judging other people. That's when we come together as humanity, as one human race, without the polarity. And then one of the journeys is coming back to your own self-love, meeting your higher dimensional guides, and then really shifting and focusing on what is your highest timeline potential in this life with an Ascension PDF workbook. So that is available. And then, a lot of other stuff on the website.
If people want to contact you, are you open to them contacting you? Is it better they contact you through email or the website?
Yeah, I mean, usually people contact me. I have a contact form on both websites, or my email is fine too. And the email, I think I have it posted on there, so I'm not trying to like hide.
Right. This has been phenomenal, and I appreciate you letting us take you way over time. So
No, I enjoy the conversation, and I'm always happy to be with you guys.
yeah, I would like to get you on definitely sooner rather than later, because 2 years is just unacceptable. Guys, do you have any final thoughts, BJ or John, before we start to wrap the episode up?
Just thank you for coming on. I'm glad I got to be a part of this. I just feel so lucky because it's just there's you get my mind going places I never thought I would go, and and I think that's going to help with a lot of our listeners too. Just they're going to open up their minds to all of these different ideas and just run with it and go to your website and try to find out more. Like, I want to know more. So I think that's the biggest thing, is it just sparks that curiosity, creativity, and just the and what could be and what is, and just trying to get there. And I'm glad that we have people like you to help guide us there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. You blew my mind the first time that you were on, and definitely blew my mind this time as well. And I'm glad BJ's mind got blown too. Um, so thank you for coming on. And like Ashley said, 2 years is too long. So
Thank you so much.
And I'm really I'm excited to be a part of your journey, even if it's like just blips in time, to see, because you've been on a few times, and to see your journey from when we met you, I don't even know, like season 2, and then to have you on again in season 4. It seems like we have a thing with 2 years, 2 years. But let's break that pattern. But to watch like this unfold is really, like BJ said, it's a gift to be able to experience this, even if it's just moments in time on this timeline. Like and some of it's been really sad. I mean, we connected with you shortly after your husband's passing, but it's all been a gift to be able to experience this with you in some way. So I really appreciate each and every time you set aside time to come share your journey with us, and share the vulnerability that you have to share all of this is really phenomenal. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you so much for having this platform, for having me share, and I'm happy to be on anytime.
Yay. Maybe on one of the recordings, we can have you like walk us through how to use the Oracle decks.
I'd be happy to.
Because I think it's the Cosmos one. I think I have the connection to the Cosmos, but I was trying to moment it, like I think earlier I was looking to the side because I have my books and my stuff that I got. So I'm like, which one do I have again? But yes, thank you so much, Lisa. Do you have any final thoughts?
I would just say for those of you out there, no matter what's going on in the world right now, whatever you're perceiving it, you really do have the ability to create your reality. All timelines are existing. And the way to do this is to focus on what you actually want to experience in your life. Try to keep your attention off of what you don't want to experience, because when your attention goes there, you're creating more of that. And other things can be happening in the world, and it doesn't have to impact you directly. You get to be in control of your environment. And that's when we start shifting our energy into a higher vibration. And that's when the awakening happens in a massive quantity.
Thank you so much, Lisa. This is always such a magical time. All right, BJ Segura, would you like to bring us home?
Whew, how do I bring us home from this? Again, just thank you for coming on. I know our listeners are going to just love this episode and have even more questions. And so, yeah, we'll definitely have to have you on again for the next thing. But for everybody out there, thank you for tuning into this episode of 3Haunted Podcast with your hosts. I'm BJ Segura.
I'm Ashley Lunar Goddess.
I'm John Thomas.
If you have any questions, comments, or episode suggestions, please feel free to email us at 3hauntedpodcast@gmail.com. If you haven't done so already, please like, follow, and subscribe to all our social media. You don't want to miss our amazing guests like Dr. Lisa Thompson.
Also, don't forget to check out 3hauntedpodcast.com, where you'll find all of our past and current season episodes, as well as guest information and all kinds of awesome merch.
Until next time.